Good afternoon and welcome to this presentation, Empower Your English Language Learning Students with Native Accent by Carnegie Speech. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend this meeting today. And I hope that it will be valuable information and useful to you in your lives. So I'm David Oberlin. I'm the Vice President of Global Education at Carnegie Speech. I've been working with Carnegie Speech for almost 10 years now as first an independent salesperson and then recently as Vice President of Global Education. I work with institutions all over the world to help them to understand the value of native accent and to implement it within their institutions. Carnegie Speech is committed to helping students to achieve high verbal fluency. According to the Stanford Business School study, verbal fluency and sociability are the two most important predictors of success for students. And that would be success in school as well as in their lives, in their business lives. Carnegie Speech believes that every student can achieve high verbal fluency if they're provided with effective tools, and both students and teachers rate native accent as extremely effective in accent improvement and helping them to speak with confidence based on a poll of about 300 students and about 50 teachers. Carnegie Speech is an education company founded in 2001 and based on work done at the Language Technologies Institute at Carnegie Mellon University, one of the top artificial intelligence labs in the world. We have expertise and patented technologies in pinpointing speech recognition, which I will show you in a minute, and also patent pending on the intelligent tutoring strategy that we apply, which I'll also be showing you. We assess, diagnose, and train verbal fluency skills in English for non-native speakers, and because everything is based on measurement, the results are objective and proven over time. By the way, if you have any questions during this broadcast, if you would type them into the chat window, I will attempt to answer them as they appear, or you can wait until the end and ask. We'll have a question and answer session at the end. Native accent is prescriptive and adaptive verbal fluency training, which includes assessments and initial, final, and interim assessments, targeted instructions for 63 first languages. So the way in which we teach skills will be different depending on the first language of the learner. We also have a standalone assessment for screening students as they come into your institutions with a summary and detailed reporting and a custom next steps landing page so that when students complete the assessment, they can be directed to do what you want them to do. Our licenses include all implementation, training, and support services, so there's no additional fee for those services. Carnegie Speech products are globally delivered to participants on any modern computer with high-speed internet access. However, a USB headset is highly recommended for the best performance, and that's because these headsets have noise-canceling technology, which tends to minimize background noise and make the students' recordings more accurate. Carnegie Speech is engaged with a number of schools that have international school partnerships and pathways programs. These are some of those that we are currently working with in the US and China and Korea and Qatar. And then we also are in intensive English programs and ITA preparation programs at many US universities, as well as in community adult and technical schools in across the US. The assessment, which is the same, the standalone assessment and the embedded assessment in native accent are essentially the same assessment. We measure 38 sounds of English. We We measured those phonemes in different positions within words and phrases, so in the initial, medial, and final position and in blends. We measure word stress pitch and 7 fluency skills and 28 grammar skills. The assessment completion time is about 30 minutes. There's no download of software necessary because it's globally delivered as software as a service, and it's Windows and Mac compliant with any HTML5 compliant browser, which basically means all modern or commonly used browsers. The assessment in NativeAccent starts the student on their journey. The software is both prescriptive and adaptive and selects exercises in pronunciation, word stress, fluency, and grammar that are based on their assessment scores and their first language. So the exercises in the lessons are customized based on the participant's first language and gender. And it's proven to help students to significantly increase their pronunciation scores in 10 hours of active learning. And I'll be showing you some results of studies in just a moment. As I mentioned earlier, we recommend a USB headset with noise canceling microphone technology. These headsets are now available at about $20. Just a few years ago, they were $65. And so the technology has become more highly available and therefore cheaper. The upper block in this slide shows a study that was done in an adult ed school in Miami-Dade, Florida. This was 60 students over 60 days. And because it's adult ed, not all students showed up and did their work. However, those that did spend 10 or more hours using NativeAccent got a 238% mean average gain in pronunciation and word stress. This was only pronunciation and word stress. We did not include fluency and grammar in this particular study. The listening skills for the same group also increased about 2.5 times what the expected mean gain was for that group of students. So we have our software measuring their before and after skills in pronunciation, the CASAS test measuring their improvement in a before and after testing on the CASAS learning test. And down in this quadrant is a much larger study that was conducted of 660 students over a period of about 7.5 to 10 hours. The average study time was 7.5 hours. And these are human raters rating their before and after their improvement over time. And this shows that there was a significant improvement in articulation, fluency, and grammar in just 7.5 hours average study time. The NativeAccent begins with this automated speech assessment. It takes about 25 minutes and measures about 400 sub-skills of English. It's the participants record from a series of scripts, and then at the end of the assessment, the program displays a scorecard that shows their overall performance in each of the 4 skill areas. So this is a sample of the scorecard showing the overall pronunciation skill level for this student as being 53%. That means that 53% of the phonemes were considered to be above threshold. And so this gives the student an overall idea of what their skill level is. They click on Go to the Lesson Plan, and then the students are presented with a custom lesson plan that's designed for their specific speech challenges based on their assessment score, their first language, and their first language background. We support currently 63 languages. The intelligent tutor dynamically updates the exercises as the student progresses through the lesson plan. So we scaffold the activities 3 times during their course, and as the student gains skills in a particular phoneme, for example, then they are presented with a more challenging set of words, phrases, and sentences so that they can improve. This is a sample intelligent tutor path, and this intelligent tutor path is just highly abbreviated for the purposes of this demonstration so that you can see that we are actually repeating the topic of the lesson. There's actually a third tier down here, but it would not fit on this slide. And each lesson is 15 minutes long. So at the end of their intelligent tutor path, they will have 45 minutes of practice. And these are their weakest skills moving towards their stronger skills based on their assessment scores. So this would be 27%, this would be 32%, this would be 40%. And then at the end of the pronunciation portion, then it would switch over to word stress or fluency or grammar, whatever is in the curriculum. The teacher or a local administrator can select what curriculum is presented to the student. So the lesson preparation section begins with a lesson overview. And so this
yellow, opinion.
And so I had my sound actually up much higher. I wonder if I can't improve it by going up here and starting again.
Yeah. Yellow.
So
opinion.
The word samples show the focus sound of the lesson in the initial, medial, and final position depending on the words. And then they move on to an exercise, and this is a pronunciation activity on the ya sound. Ya at the beginning of the word. Listen to the model speaker to hear a sample of fluent speech, then record yourself reading the same item below. If I were to record this and say it correctly, yawn, then the focus sound of the lesson is highlighted in green. Green is for good, yellow's for close, red needs improvement. So if I were to say Jean, then the focus sound would be highlighted in red, and if it's either yellow or red, the suggestion window pops open with a narrative description on how to produce that sound, as well as the overview of these overview videos and the sample words. So they would then come back and listen to these, then come back and click the record button and say yawn, and then they would receive the correct feedback, and the system would automatically move them on to the next activity in this lesson. Pitch exercises are sometimes difficult for non-native speakers because they can't necessarily hear the difference. The model speaker would say that's $50. If I were to record that's $50, then I would get a visual feedback that shows that the fifth was rising when it should have been falling. And it's also, there's a narrative description up here. And this turns out to be extremely valuable feedback for students that can't quite hear the difference, because they can follow along this visual feedback. That's $50. And that would show that the pitch is correct here because it's below the line. It doesn't have to be on the same angle as the fluent speaker, just in the same direction, either above or below the line. Duration is the relative length of syllables in phrases and sentences. And so they listen to the model speaker who says, "Get me a beautiful present." And if I were to record, "Get me a beautiful present," then you would see the relative duration of this syllable was longer when it was compared to the syllables around it. It's longer than it should be. And so it's not that it's long or longer than the fluent speaker, it's related to the syllables before and after it. Get me a beautiful present would produce this outcome. And you see this is the same length as it was previously, but these syllables are now longer and it's more relatively correct based on them. So fluency in our software is connected speech. We teach 8 fluency skills: pausing in lists, pausing in sentences, linkage with consonants and vowels, palatalization, reduction of the H sound, and reading rate are some of them. And so we have documentation on the web that you can download all of the information about what we actually teach. But in this case, there's a pause. There should be a pause where there is a comma. But if I were to run the sentence together, sponges are simple animals having no true tissues, it would highlight the comma and give me a suggestion about pausing. And then I would move to re-record it until I get it correct. Grammar activities are in 2 parts. There are multiple choice options for someone to record. They've received already a lesson overview about what this grammatical task is, and then they are to select the correct sentence. I'm pleased with my new leather thin black wallet would produce this incorrect response and a suggestion. I'm pleased with my new thin black leather wallet would produce a correct outcome. You'll notice that the position has changed. This is because we randomize the samples, and so the student can't remember the location. They have to actually think about the order. When we move about halfway through the curriculum in this lesson, the item types change to a sentence with a grammatical error. And the student then needs to apply what they've learned in the first half of this lesson to a sentence which is incorrect and record it in the correct order. Jenny loved to play with the plastic colorful ball would give me no visual feedback here, but a suggestion that color comes before material. Jenny loved to play with a colorful plastic ball. So those are the different item types that the student can use to improve their skills. There are 2 roles in the administration of NativeAccent. One is called the local administrator, and when logged in as a local administrator, a teacher or an admin can create classes, assign teachers, enroll students, and set course customizations. Teachers, when they're logged in their teacher role, can enroll students, view class roster and student performance, modify course settings, edit the profile and change passwords for students, and assign lessons and run reports. This is the teacher dashboard. This is when you first log in as a local admin or teacher. The difference is that the teachers do not have this add course button. The teacher and local admin can see all the students in this class. They can see how many times they've taken an assessment, whether they've actually completed their most recent assessment, how many total active learning minutes they've been engaged with the software. I need to explain that the active learning time in NativeAccent is not wall clock time. It's any minute during which the record button has been pressed starts the clock on 1 minute of active learning time. If they continue to record, the clock keeps running. But if they stop recording for any reason, for example, reading a set of instructions that are fairly complex or long, then at the end of that minute, that last minute, it will stop and wait for them to press the record button again. So this is a very accurate window into what their actual active learning time or recording and listening time is. We also can see the last date that they logged in and their overall current performance skill level. This number of 65%, for example, is derived from the average of that student's name, which is off the screen down here, but the average of their scores in each of the 4 skill areas. We'll look at that in just a minute. We have reports that are specially designed for education. Teachers want to know 2 basic things. They probably want to know more than that. In fact, some want to know a lot more than that, but everyone wants to know these 2 things. Are my students doing their assigned work? This is a date range report. The class recording report is both a diagnostic report where you can listen to their recordings and a date range report that shows where they spent their time. So this is 3 months of elapsed, actually almost 4 months of date range. However, this could be 4 days or 1 day. This shows that during this 4-month period, this student spent a total of 847 minutes, about 13 hours working on NativeAccent. They did 3,156 recordings. It shows where these recordings were done and how many minutes were spent in each of the 4 skill areas. It also shows the amount of time that they spent in the assessments. This particular student took 2 assessments and repeated almost all of the items 2 times. There are 89 items in the assessment. It shows the totals and the average, and this is a report that can be copied into Excel. So for any date range that you want to share with your colleagues or students, you can pull a date range report and look at their total active learning time, their recordings, and where they did their work. The Student Improvement Analyzer answers the question, are my students improving? So I'm pointing you at this student, which is Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee spent 1,571 minutes, and this is total time, not a date range, since their first assessment and including their first assessment. How many minutes have they spent of active learning time? The initial key here is if their skills threshold is set at 60%, that means if they're above 60%, they get a passing score. If fewer than 50% of all of the phonemes were above the skills threshold, they would be red. If between 50 and 75% of the phonemes were above the skills threshold, they would be counted yellow. And if they were above 75% were above the skills threshold, they would be green. So Mr. Lee moved from being in this training category to this passing category. He had 126% overall improvement in his phonemes, and the sounds, 16 sounds improved, which represents a little less than half of the total number of phonemes that we teach, which is 38. He didn't actually do any grammar because there was no grammar included in his curriculum. However, you'll notice the student right below him did a little bit of work in grammar and had some improvement. Mr. Lee spent a considerable amount of time working on fluency and had some big improvement in his fluency skills. He went down in word stress only because we don't have a sufficient number of samples in our current assessment to show a true measure of the word stress scores correctly. So in the final scores, however, these are accurate. I can't show improvement, but I can definitely show current skills. I like to say the proof is in the pudding. Proof of the pudding is in the eating. I had to look that up actually. I only knew the first part of that. And so we believe that every student can achieve high verbal fluency if they're provided with effective tools. And students and teachers rate NativeAccent as extremely effective. But we are going to offer you a free software pilot in January. If you decide you'd like to try NativeAccent, just send an email in response to one that you receive following this webinar, and we will be happy to set you up. We'll contact you to see how many students you need and what would be the time frame that you would like to pilot NativeAccent. I would like to actually go over and show you the live demonstration of our software. So I've logged in as a student. The student, when they complete their assessment, are presented with this intelligent tutor path. You'll notice, as I mentioned before, the phoneme or the skills are repeated 3 times during the curriculum, and the length of curriculum is designed by the teacher or a local administrator when they create the course. We'll actually look at how to do that in a minute. This is just a sample activity for the duh sound, and so there's a narrative description on how to produce this sound. There's a mouth movement
Duh.
and facial movement video.
Duh.
You may recognize these. We actually licensed these from the University of Iowa and contextualize them into the activities.
Deer.
Initial position,
Radar.
medial, and final.
Bleed.
Add the tip and finish dessert.
So I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm
Dog.
showing a, I didn't quite get this correct the last time I recorded it. That's why it's yellow. If it's a filled circle, this means that I've already completed this activity. If it's a half-filled circle, I haven't completed it successfully. So I listen to the fluent speaker, and then I record myself. Dog. And this is the chirp on my speaker. I'll see if I can make it stop. Dog. I think I may have had this waiting a little bit too long.
Add the tip and finish dessert. Dog.
Dog. Dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Dog. So part of this problem I'm having is because we're in a webinar, and the webinar is controlling the microphone that I'm using. And even though I adjust it, it automatically is adjusting it back to where it wants it for this presentation. So let's just go to another activity and see if I can't make it work anyway.
Bat, bad.
Bat, bad.
Set, said.
Set, set. Set, sad. So I said sad here, and even though
Lid. Set,
I said the focus sound of the lesson correctly, my score that the intelligent tutor is using to structure the curriculum just went down because I didn't say the this phoneme correctly. And so it's going to adjust the score accordingly, and I'll show you what that means in just a moment. So the activities are organized by the teacher when they, or I'm sorry, by the intelligent tutor based on instructions given by the teacher. And this is these are the lesson library. So these are all the pronunciation activities. This is word stress, pitch, and duration.
calculate.
calculation. Check my calculation.
So this is an advanced build-up activity. This is the more advanced as you go through the curriculum. Back in 1917. And you'll see that even though I got the pitch on the 9 correctly, the teen was too high. Back in 1917. Back in 1917. So you can see how the chirp might affect this in the speaker that I'm using to broadcast to you the output of the software. Back in 1917.
Back in 1917.
Back in 1917. So I got that one almost correct. I have to do a little bit more work on this one. So by listening to the model speaker, I was able to adjust and say it more correctly. So before we move to the teacher view, are there any questions? I'm going to just quickly give people a second to chat any questions they may have. Okay, and then I'll just go ahead and show you, for example, the 8 fluency skills that we teach: pausing in sentences, lists, linkage with consonant and vowels, palatalization. The negative contraction followed by the word you blends the contraction's final T with the pronoun's initial Y.
Not yet.
Not yet. Try again to connect the sounds at the word boundaries. Not yet. So this is relatively simple. Then we start working into more complex words and phrases. Don't you have a trailer?
Didn't you pick up the medicine?
Didn't you pick up the medicine? Didn't you pick up the medicine? So at this point, I'm going to log out as a student and log in as a teacher and give you an overview on how you would use NativeAccent with your students. It's the same login page for both students and teachers, but the software knows that you're a teacher by your login. This is a class that was created for demonstration purposes. This particular class is an 8-hour class, so many of you are on semesters, and if you're on semesters and your semesters are 16 weeks long, you might want students to work 2 hours a week, which would be a 32-hour curriculum. However, maybe the first week of classes you don't get them started, and the last week of classes are exams, so instead of a 16-week, it's a 14-week curriculum, so this might be 28 hours. This will build an intelligent tutor path that's 28 hours long, including the initial assessment and the final assessment. Additionally, you can tune the course so that it presents what you want to teach in your classroom. In this particular class, there is no grammar. In this intelligent tutor for this class, there is 50% of the activities will be in pronunciation, 25 will be in word stress, and 25% will be in fluency. but you can change these numbers as you please. So I could make this 15 and 35, for example. And then if I click Save, this will reorganize the Intelligent Tutor path for the students around these percentages. This must be done at the beginning when you create the course, not if you can do it in the middle of the course, but then you have to rerun the Intelligence Tutor for all students, and it will look to them like they're starting back at the beginning. They are not, however, because they have acquired all the skills that they have during the sessions that they've been working. So the general overall course hours and customizing the content that is presented to students are the two main parts of the edit course menu. And that's when you add a course, actually that's the information that you set up. We have a very easy way to add students. We need quite a bit of information about the students because our voice models are gender matched, and we have the curriculum based on their first language. So we're collecting this information, and we could type it into this web form, or if you have, and that doesn't prove to be convenient for many users, or we can upload a CSV file. And so I've prepared a little CSV file here that has just the name of the abbreviation for the school plus student 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. This is a temporary username for the student when they log in. So what we do is we set this up so that it fills out all the information and sets up a request that when the student logs in with the COE student 3 and change me as the password, it will automatically trigger a routine where they have to complete the other information in the sheet themselves, set up a new username and password, and then they will actually take on the burden of filling out all the information to enroll in your class. These students have been anonymized, but these are actual students that did work and allowed me to use their profiles. There's no recordings associated with them. They've been deleted, but this is just to show you how to run a report. I needed some data. So the overall current performance skill level for student 4 is 67%, and that is the average of their pronunciation, word stress, fluency, and grammar, these 4 skills, and the average of these 4 is what's represented up here. This is their current skill performance, but we also have their assessment performance. And so, for example, the DD student 9 had an initial assessment of 63%, and 15 days later, he took another assessment, had an increase of 10% in pronunciation, the same skill in word stress, 11% in fluency, and 6% in grammar. So we can look over time at what their assessment performance has been. We can also look at their active learning time. So these towers represent the students that are within a particular time range. So between 14 and 15 hours, this DD student is DD student 8. Now, this is used, usually isn't distributed this way. This just happens to be this way because of the wide disparity of the people that I selected for this report. However, you can see that this student has quite a bit more than the students down here. So this is used for managing outliers. Basically, for every week of class, if you want them to work 2 hours a week, you should be able to look at this and see all of the students bunched up within 6 or 7 hours. But then there's somebody down here, you know that that's a student you need to pay attention to. And here's a student way up here. Well, you obviously need to give them an attaboy and acknowledge that they've done a lot of work, because with a lot of work will come better performance. There's a direct relationship between their time on task and their improvement. So I can export any information that's on this front sheet as a PDF file. I can export it as an Excel file. It's zipped up here in a zip file, and then I can look at that information here. This is the class roster, overall skill performance level, when they last logged in, their total active learning time, how many times they started the assessment, and if they've completed it, the most recent one. And so just trying to make sure that you can see everything here. I can also print to a PDF file if I want to see everything that's on that front page. I can view it here. This is all the information that's in the dashboard in a single document. We have extensive reporting. As I mentioned before, there are reports that show what's called a summary assessment report. I'm just going to select one student and run that summary assessment report. Their first skill and their current skill. These are the color coding. Above 75% is green, below 50 and 75 is yellow, below 50 is red in the following histogram. And so you can see basically this is the initial assessment. This shows out of 38 phonemes, 23 were above skill level, but these are the ones that weren't above skill level. These are some of the ones that weren't. There's actually more. These out of 7 assessment items, 4 were above skill level, but these are the ones that weren't, and so on. So this shows at a glance how this particular student is doing in their initial assessment or their current skill level. The assessment report can be reached either by clicking on this link or from this main menu by clicking on this link. And this actually is the most useful information about how our software actually works. So you can see the blue bar is their initial assessment, the initial assessment on August of 16th of 2016. This is the current skill level. And if you look at the bold and the bar and the bold number indicate the probability of correctly pronouncing this skill the next time they utter it. So based on 26 samples, the number in parenthesis, there's a 15% probability of correctness. However, the current skill level is based on 674 samples. There's a 50% probability that they'll say it correctly. So their skill level has come up based on the fact that they've been doing work in this particular area. The intelligent tutor works like this. It looks at their initial scores, which are the blue bar, and it looks at this skill and says, well, the lowest skill here is the NG sound, the N, and then followed by the U. And so it looks at the weakest skills for each student and organizes the intelligent tutor path to include those weakest skills and moving towards the stronger skills. However many hours of instruction we set up will determine how many of these actually are included in the curriculum. Then we look at the same thing for grammar, for word stress, and for fluency skills. So the fluency skills that are high won't be included in their curriculum. The ones that are low will be included in the curriculum. And so we also have the class recording report that I referred to previously. And actually this student doesn't have any, but this student does have some recordings. I'm just going to go back a month or so and organize them by date. So between this date, October 1st, and today, this student measured the actors and clothed them in casual shirts and trousers. This is an assessment item, and it shows which phonemes were correct in green, which ones were almost correct in this brown color, because yellow really is not readable against this background, and then red for needs improvement. So this shows out of this sentence which phonemes were correct and which ones weren't. By exploding these, we can look at what was recorded during any date range, and we can listen to those recordings. It turns out I only have one recording in this date range. I probably have to go back much further to get more recordings, so I'm going to do that. Measure the actors and clothe them in casual shirts and trousers. So I don't have any more for the student at this time, but I can show you down at the bottom, this date range report shows that I spent a total of 1 minute in recording, and I did 1 recordings here. The other students in this class will give you an idea of how this report will run. I have to go way back because they were in 2014. And now it's loading all of the records for all of these students. Some of them had quite a few recordings, as you may recall. And so for this student, I can look at, now there won't be any recordings here because they've been deleted, as I mentioned previously, but you can see which things they worked on. And at the bottom here, you can see this table that shows the active learning time, total active learning time for these students in this date range, as well as the average here. So of course, DD student 4 threw the average way off, which is why I threw them into this group of sample students. This is this table can be, as I mentioned, copied and brought into an Excel spreadsheet, and it keeps its format and its color. So there's one way that I can track and keep track of students' performance and show them where they are in terms of the entire class. Additionally, we have the Student Improvement Analyzer, which will take a look at their progress over time and where they are now relative to where they started in their initial assessment. And it's building this report because there's a lot of data that is having to go and collect all that data. I think rather than doing that, what I'm going to do is select none. I'll just do 2 students. And that should be much faster. Here's that same skill level score rating. And this shows that this student spent 736 minutes. They're still not above their average phonemes are still in this 50 to 75% range, but they have an 84.1 average improvement in the scores, the sounds that they practiced, 19 sounds improved. And so that's about half of the curriculum, 38 phonemes. They went down a little in grammar, they went up a little in fluency, and as I mentioned before, this is their actual score here. So at this point, before we move on, do you have any questions about the teacher activities? So I've been asked to, what does NativeAccent cost? For educational institutions, we have several different options for licensing. One is the single user license. This is an annual license. It's committed to a student and is theirs to use for a year. It's not transferable. And they start at $79 based on quantity. They go down as low as $59. The standalone assessment is also available. It's $10 per assessment and it goes down as low as $5 per assessment depending on volume. This is the single user license approach. We also have an internet seat license. The seat license is limited to 25 users per concurrent user license and is $575. So depending on if there's very large institutions and they need lots of seats, oftentimes this is better than the single user license. And finally, for schools who want to use the software but don't have budget, but want to encourage students to use it anyway, we have a school partnership program. In this program, the school pays a $500 a year partnership fee. That basically covers the cost of all training, implementation, and support. And the students purchase the software using a coupon to get a discount on our online store from $300, the retail price, to $75 per semester. We have a number of schools that are using this approach. It really depends on which will best suit your needs and the needs of your institution. So I also want to share with you, I've been doing this for a while, and I built my own website for the purposes of supporting you and your students. And this includes a roadmap for students, teachers, and local administrators. The website is edurep.com. I'll just go ahead and put it in the chat window so that if you want to, you can bookmark it. And the roadmap includes a 2-minute tutorial on what is NativeAccent, how long will it take, and what can it do for me as a student. It has browser recommendations. It has a little 4-minute video on how to adjust the headset microphone. This turns out to be the most important thing that they can do, is to learn how to reliably adjust the headset microphone, because it's the only input device for NativeAccent. They receive their login and password from you. Usually it's the part of their email address before the @ sign, but it could be anything that you determine. It's a temporary password, a temporary username and password. And then when they log in and complete that web form with their own information, they are then taken to the initial assessment of skills, and the assessment takes about 25 to 30 minutes. If they leave at any point, it will bookmark them, and they can then come back and continue to complete the assessment, at which time they'll be taken to their customized intelligent tutor path. So the intelligent tutor path will then be presented for the student whenever they log in, unless the instructor or teacher assigns lessons. So one of the things that you can do as a teacher is to make an assignment. I want all of my students to work on a particular skill before next week when we meet. Let's say it's the I sound. So we give that a lesson name, and then click assign. Now every student in this class has just been assigned that lesson. The next time a student logs in, and I'm just going to use this tool, which allows me to edit the student information, reset their password, or allows me as a teacher to log in as that student. I'm now logged in as the student, and where's my intelligent tutor path? Well, it's hiding until I complete this 15-minute activity. at which time the intelligent tutor will then reappear for that student automatically. So the roadmap is designed to help the student through the initial process of setting up. Most students these days are more than computer literate. They're very comfortable with computer technology, but the microphone setup is something that they might not know about and might need some help with. In terms of resources for the student, there's a quick start guide, a tutorial which describes how to use the lessons to improve. This is a more detailed and longer tutorial. A narrative step-by-step guide. So this is the student roadmap, but with it's more like a student handbook or manual. And how this is a guide to their student to their reporting and troubleshooting. We provide direct support for your students. So if they have a problem, they should follow the instructions here, which is to send an email to customer care with their username, a description of the issue, and if possible, a screenshot of the error, and the best way to reach them by email or phone number. And so this is the student overview. The teacher roadmap is not as interactive. It basically describes who's responsible for what part of the process. So this would be me setting up the school account, teacher account, and generating student codes, the local administrator setting up the courses, and the teacher, this is an orientation meeting or training where you will get practical information on how to use the software to help your students and to manage the class. The other thing that you would do is assign your students to actually watch the tutorials and then take the assessment. Tell them how many minutes per week they're supposed to, they're instructed to work. And if you're going to be presenting the tutorials in a large screen in a classroom, you don't want to do it on every computer in the classroom. You want to project it up on a screen. This will eliminate the possible problem of having the bandwidth in your lab be compromised. There is extensive resources for teachers, including the roadmap. This roadmap is designed to help you to understand how to, well, I have all the objectives here. And so how to add students, change course settings, add assignments, add lesson plans, and do the things that you need to do as a course administrator or a teacher. It also includes a list of the skills taught and assessed. I remember I said that what we teach is available online, and this is where you would find it. So the 38 phonemes, pitch and duration, 8 fluency skills, and 52 grammar skills. Here's access to the student tutorials in case you want to launch them from this menu. And again, we provide direct support for both students and teachers. And so during your pilot, if you would please contact me if you're having any issues, or if you want to find out how the customer care works, you could also assign it to customer care. I'm on their list and I will know if it's something that's going on with one of your pilots. Finally, there's an overview for local administration. There's very little local IT support required for NativeAccent because the software is designed to work through your firewall and just connect to our server and our server to connect back to the client without any interruptions. However, if there is a problem, there's a connectivity checklist here which can identify what the problem might be, and that will help your local IT network specialist to allow access. The web portal set up by me. Again, this is that same list we saw over there as teachers. However, these tools are for local the local administrator that explain how to his or her role in working with the software and reporting and so on. So again, the web address is edurep.com. I will point out, if you want to just today try it out, you can click on this try it for free link, and that will take you to a roadmap for our part of the world. And you click on this link, you have to have a headset connected to your computer. If you click on this link, it will give you an opportunity to log in. Since I'm already logged in over here, I don't know if it actually is going to let me do this or not. Let's try it again. I think it's because I was logged in. I didn't log out correctly in order that it thinks I'm still logged in to the other account. So I'll come back if that happens to load up or it figures that out. There it is. Okay. So you'll just put in your first and last name, your email address, and your first language or the first language of a student that you are familiar with. For example, if you work with a lot of Chinese students, you'll be familiar with the kinds of issues that they have, and the gender for the voice model. Save changes, and you will be presented with a 5-minute assessment and 4 15-minute lessons. And this will give you an opportunity to try it before you decide whether or not you want to pilot. At this point, I would like to ask if you have any other questions. We're now at 4 o'clock and I'm just running over a minute. And I do appreciate very much that everyone's taken time out of their busy day, especially at this time of year, and look forward to the possibility of our getting together for a discussion about your school and your students and the possible pilot. So if you have any questions, I'm going to stay on the line here for just a minute and I'll answer them. For those of you that are leaving now, I thank you again for your attendance.